Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome to our special Saturday edition of Focus on Liberia. Our topic today is the Ganta land dispute. Ganta, located in Nimba County, otherwise known as Gompa City. There has been a land dispute there. People from the Mandingo ethnic group have been crying and complaining about their houses, their property being taken over at the start of the war. And since that time, the land dispute has lingered. It came to a boiling point quite recently when some homes were bulldozed in Ganta City. I have with me fellow Liberians born and raised in Ganta. They are now living in the United States and the UK, and they are here to talk about the Ganta land dispute. Joining me from the city of brotherly love is the guy his colleagues call him Perfect Manager, Maurice Crowan. Perfect Manager, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. It's good to have you, man. It's been a while.
I know you were very active on the list. Then you went to Liberia to enjoy. You were on the gravy train.
Look, I knew you were going to bring this thing up.
But thank you for your service to our country. You are back in Philly. Welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis.
Also joining us from the city of brotherly love is Abi Sano. Abi, welcome to Focus on.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dennis. It's a pleasure. Actually, I'm from Birmingham, UK.
Oh, sorry.
The other person from the city of brotherly love is Al Jabate.
Yeah. Al is from So, Abi is joining us from the UK. And Abi, welcome to Focus on Liberia. How is it there in the UK?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. You know, nice weather. The weather's getting better. So, yeah. Thank you. And it's a pleasure being with you.
In the UK.
Sorry. Oh, yeah.
I was using my British accent.
Oh, there was a big football match on today. I think Perfect Manager Morris doesn't want to talk about that because he's a Chelsea
fan. I'm not interested in that game today.
So forget about the football aspect today.
All right. Let me welcome also from the city of brotherly love, Mr. Al Jabate. Al, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to tell our story.
Thank you so much. We are glad to have you. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia, where we strive to educate, to elevate, and promote all things Liberian. One of the things that have been happening in our country is lingering land dispute. Almost all over the country, we have these kind of issues of land. And who can better explain this than people from Nimba County, where there has been things are actually boiling over. So we have our brothers here, all born and raised in Ganta City, Nimba County. I must mention they are all members of the Mandingo ethnic group, the ethnic group that continue to bear the brunt of this land issue in Ganta, in Nimba County as a whole, especially this one in Ganta City. So we've called them here so we can hear their side of the story. Let me start with you, gentlemen. This is your first time on Focus on Liberia, and here we say welcome, accept our ceremonial cola. So just a little bit about yourself so that my viewers will know you better. Let me start with Mr. Al Jabate.
Yeah, okay. I'm Al Jabate, born in Ganta, Nimba County, raised in Ganta, Nimba County. Later on, went to unit school actually in Ganta. All right. And then moved to Monrovia during the war and completed high school in Monrovia, went to the University of Liberia. Now worked with the Liberian National Police for 15 years before moving to the United States. And currently I live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I'm a social worker.
Thank you. Welcome again to Focus on Liberia. Let me go to Abi.
Abi Sando, my name is, and I was born and raised in Ganta, Nimba County as well. They went to Ganta Muslim school and then into to Monrovia as well. Then during the Civil War, went to Zedequere, spent a few years there, and then back to Monrovia again, where I completed high school. Like we kind of like we actually enrolled at the University of Liberia just around about the same time. But then I left there in 2002. I came over to the UK, where I've been ever since. Kind of like further my education over here. In terms of work, I'm actually a civil servant. I work in the UK government, but I mean, because I don't think I'm allowed to kind of like give any more detail, but I think they got stuff there by, their code of conduct where, you're not supposed to kind of like identify yourself that way. So I'm not talking as a civil servant. Let me just put that little disclaimer, UK civil servant, let me put that little disclaimer there. But the most important thing, I'm from Ganta. I got an interest in the story there, and I got interest in what's happening there, and I think we've got a story to tell. So I'm just sort of like here to add on to that, so that your listening audience can get outside of the story.
Thank you, Evie. Let me go to the perfect manager.
So thank you, Dennis, again for having us. We really appreciate the opportunity. I, like everybody, call me, the perfect manager. My name is Morris Kroma. I'm obviously, born in Nimba County. I was raised in Monrovia, but, actively back and forth because my parents had properties in Nimba. My mother was born in Ganta. My father was born in Ganta. But my father worked for Lamco for a few years and then moved the family over to Monrovia. So for the most part, my youthful days, I lived in Monrovia, but every year we'll go to Ganta and spend the entire holiday weekend. We'll spend Eid, with family members down there. So yeah, I have emotional connection to Ganta. I worked here, went to school here. When I came here in 2001, I came to the US, went to school here. I worked here for a few years and then moved to Liberia in 2012, where I worked for the government for about 6 years. I resigned in 2018. I moved back to the US, and then I'm here. Start school in August 23rd, my first day of school. I'll be moving to Boston to go to Brandeis University to pursue a double master's in conflict resolution and sustainable international development. I'm also very interested in the conversation because, like you said, the issue of land in Liberia is become a national conversation. Land crisis is all over in Liberia now, and Nimba specifically is becoming a trigger for conflict. And I'm not sure if some of the public policy officials are paying attention, but it's good to have you so we can have a deeper dive into that conversation to see where we're going with this land dispute thing.
Thank you so much. I want to welcome you, gentlemen, again. Thanks so much for coming. And when you get that degree in conflict resolution, case studies should be right there in Gompa City, so we can have this conflict resolved once and for all. Yeah. And I too am connected with Nimba County. My wife is born and raised in Nimba, and she's saying to you all, "Hello, my Ganta brothers." You didn't know that.
Hello, Mrs. Guy.
All right. Gentlemen, we've seen horrible pictures on internet. We've heard on the radio about Ganta, the land dispute, and not everybody is up to speed. So the best place to start from is, let me ask you guys, what happened in Ganta?
I think Alpha should start then.
Yeah, I wanted to say, how you want to start?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, what happened quite recently that brought Ganta to a standstill was there was the Liberia National Police at about 4 to 5 a.m. in the morning descended on the property of our people, as you saw on the news and television. They broke down the property, and it was under the, how they call it, they went that property. They said they wanted to carry on an indictment from the court, but unfortunately they could not serve no writ. No writ was saying, but later on it was realized that this was based on an old court order from 2019, but it was not even served on the people. So what they did, they sprayed the place with tear gas, and after the tear gas the place, they targeted few young men they felt out were stubborn. They had them arrested, put them in jail, and then they broke down the property. And of course, our people became homeless. Property worth over $50,000 was destroyed.
Before you continue, I just want to say, when you say our people, who are you talking about?
I mean, we're talking about the Donzos, the Javate, and the Kruma.
Okay.
Okay, the Javate, the Donzos, and the Kruma that have been on that property for over 50 years. So the property was destroyed. $50,000 worth of property destroyed. $15,000 in cash missing. Goods stolen by other people, and all that went on. So, but this has been a lingering land dispute that have been between one Freswa and on one hand the Jabate, the Kruma, and the Donzos on the other hand.
Yeah, before you end again, you say the court order of 2019. What did the court order? What did the court order say?
Well, in 2019, there was an attempt by the court to carry on an injectment from the property.
What is injectment? To take them out?
Yeah, to evict them
on
the property.
Okay.
But the eviction did not take place. So they failed to do it. But I think under the law, even they said that this was ordered by Judge Conto. But then again, there was no new court order from Judge Conto mandating the sheriff or authorizing the Liberia National Police to carry on the injectment. But it did not say go and destroy the people's property. Even the 2019 court order did not say go and destroy the people's property. It said possession. But the people went there with some malice and they just broke down people's homes on a property that is being contested.
Okay, thank you.
So Dennis, if I can just jump in a little bit.
Yeah, I want after you, then AB, just jump in.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
AFA presents a classic example of what is wrong with Liberia as a country. So assuming that the Donsos, Jabate, and Kroma families were living on this land that is owned by someone else, and the court made a decision to say, well, these people got to get evicted. It does not warrant you demolishing the property. It doesn't. If the law says go and evict the people, you have to find a way to evict them and not demolish the property. Assuming that the land is not, that they don't own the land. But if the national police, through some sort of backdoor dealing, go ahead and begin to use tear gas and demolish the properties, it seemed to me that there has to be some sort of pre-organized, action to actually get those people to be humiliated. Now the value of the property is destroyed. The people's personal belongings are all ruined. They stole, personal cash and personal belongings, and everybody now is squabbling to find out exactly, who's responsible and what led to it. So when I say that land is a trigger for conflict, that's how sentiments are drawn into this kind of situation. Now you have people that are displaced, that have nowhere to live, and their family members, they've been on that land for over 50 years, like Alpha said. Their grandfather was on that land till he died, and his son came and lived there, and his son moved to Monrovia. His children are living there. How in the world somebody come from anywhere and just say, okay, this property belongs to me? And nobody. So, the other part of this argument also that I want to present to you then is the fact that our government should start to begin to look at the public policy as far as getting our judges that are coming from the original counties into the county to go and adjudicate cases. If I'm a Gio man from Nima County and I graduate from law school and you send me to Nima County to go and make judgment on conflict, chances are I will have a political interest in it. I will have an economic interest in it. I will have a social interest in it, right? Yeah. But if you take Dennis Jar from Grand Judicial County and send him to Nima County, that chance reduced automatically because he's not from the county. So I thought it would make much sense for the judiciary to send people into countries that they don't come from. But because you have an Emre Pay who is from Nima County that goes to Sanikwele to listen to cases, he will make decisions. Chances are he'll make decisions in the interest of his tribal leanings. That is an automatic thing. The country is bad on.
And we'll come to that in a minute, because that's something we'll come to, especially even with superintendent, and the list goes on.
Absolutely.
But let's first get to what really happened.
Yeah.
Maybe, what would you add?
I mean, just speaking up from where Morris and Alpha kind of like left it off. I think if we're talking about what happened in Ganta, we can't especially the particular issue, we can't discuss it without actually going into the legal, the fraudulent legal activity that actually led to this problem. And I mean, as Morris was saying there, no country would develop without a working judiciary system, a judiciary system that is not only seen to be fair, but is fair. But what's been happening in this particular case? How do we get to where we are?
Okay.
People being on the land, like Alpha said, they've occupied the land for like over 50 years before the war. The original owners of the lands have died long since. And then people went to court in Sanikwele, somebody claiming the land, went to court in Sanikwele, and then brought a case against people who have died. And then they lied and said that they went to Ganta to serve those people.
That's right.
And they met those people in the street. Those are people that died decades ago.
Yeah.
You saw them in the streets of Ganta, and they refused to take, the court summon or whatever. And then they went back and then render a default judgment. Yeah, render a default judgment. And in fact, the fraud is so elaborate that they went to the extent of actually finding someone, a quote unquote lawyer, that lawyer is actually representing the Donzo and the Jabate family, when in fact those people didn't even know about any of those things. So basically that went on, it's been going on and on and on until it led to this evasion. So the argument that sometimes I hear people say, oh, there was a court decision. I think, as I've said somewhere, for me, that's a straw man argument, in the sense that nobody is disputing that there was a court decision, but the argument is, how did that court decision come about? Was it just? Was it fair? Is that how the justice system should work? Because if you look at us, because we are minority, and then you think, okay, only the justice is meant to be blind, but when it comes to our right, you keep her fully sighted, just to mean that we don't mean nothing, then there's no justice. It means that you really don't want the country to develop. You don't want the country to progress. And we're talking about unification, as you were talking about yesterday. You're not really interested in that unification. So that's what we're on about here. So policymakers, our leaders, need to take interest in those things. Make sure they fix the judicial system. That's what they do it in a way that it will serve us. That's what we are interested in. We got legal document for all of those lands, but the 8th Judicial Circuit Court in Sanikwele has been a barrier between us and justice. And that's basically that's the fact.
Wow. And we showed pictures of what went on there. But make me to understand now that process that led to the evasion notice. And you said that evasion notice was in 2019. We'll come to the murder deed. We'll come to, where's the deed, or who owns it, what is in dispute. But walk me through the process as to how this evasion notice was arrived at.
Yeah, okay. Let me jump in. So, like AB was just saying, the sheriff, according to them, the sheriff made returns. And the sheriff, in his return, he said that Mr. Moli Kruma, Ansumana Jabate, Tuti Donzo, Kalfala Donzo were seen in the street of Ganta, but they refused to take precept of the raid that was served on them. So after the sheriff made a couple of returns that those people refused, the judge Emre P entered into default judgment against the people because he said they did not go to court.
Right.
So when the judgment was entered into against the defendant, they were not aware. So Judge P decided to call a conference when the conference was called, it was then that the people began to aware, in fact, that there was a writ against them, and then there had been a judgment entered against them, which was a default judgment. So,
and that was in 2019 or prior?
No, that was in 2015.
Okay.
That was 2015 when the judgment happened. And then when the people went there, they began to aware immediately. They filed what they call a bill of information. And in that bill of information, they made it clear that they were not aware. And they also realized that those who in fact or obtained the judgment on behalf of Freswa were non-lawyers because they were not satisfied by the Liberia Bar Association. There was some investigation done, and there was an attestation presented to that effect that those people, there's no information whether they graduated from the recognized law school or were they in fact eligible to practice law in the Republic of Liberia. So there was an attestation from the bar to that effect, and that was also put before the judge. So when that bill of information was filed, what Judge Emery Pitt did, he kept it, and he did not act on the judgment, the default judgment, because apparently he knew the family who had lived on the property for so long, or there's something that he knew that he did not actually carry on. He did not enforce his own judgment, so he shelved his own judgment. Now, when Judge Bassett took over, another judge took over from him, Judge Bassett. Bassett was also informed. Well, he did not actually look into the bill of information, but when he was leaving, he turned it over to Bassett. So what Bassett did was he decided to hear the bill of information, but declined the bill of information. And then in declining the bill of information, what he said was he could not undo the judgment of his peer of the same court. So he decided to uphold the judgment. And then he then decided to have the families evicted from the property. But then the family decided to go to the Supreme Court of the Republic of Liberia, asking the Supreme Court to put a prohibition on what the lower court was trying to do.
Right.
Yeah. Judge Bassett in the lower court was trying to do. Correct. But then the justice in chamber, Justice Nangbe, declined and allowed Bassett to carry on the action. But then again, the family decided through their counselor to file a bill of error before the Supreme Court, because under Rule 7 of the Supreme Court, it is allowed that every person who wish to bring a bill of error before the Supreme Court must be able to must be heard. But you, through your counselor, you should be able to establish that. There should be a certificate presented by a counselor to establish that this is not actually intended for mere delay of the case.
All right, hold on. Let me get something. You said Justice Nangbe declined to put a prohibition on the eviction. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And what was his reason?
Because his reason that the judgment had been since 2015, but then the issue the family raised was when they became aware and they went to the conference, they filed a bill of information, and that was in 2018. So the father basically decided to hear that bill of information and decline it, even though basically acknowledged the issues raised in that bill of information by the family, that those non-lawyers were not eligible, were not qualified, and could not practice law in Liberia. He alluded to the complaint that was right. The people were right in saying that it was fraudulent on the part of those lawyers to have represented the people. But then again, he said that he cannot undo the judgment of his peer in the same court.
All right. So starting with Justin Nambwe declined the prohibition. Say, hey, I think he was, according to you, he was citing that this is a statute of limitation, maybe that hey, this has
Yeah,
been since
because it been 2015. But then the fact that the lower court decided to listen to the Bill of Information,
so it renew it.
so it renewed it
Yeah.
because there have been a hearing on the Bill of Information.
So what was the last action now that is that caused these people now to go and evict? Did the Supreme Court say something else that give them the right to go and do the eviction?
Well, this is what we're talking about, the operation of the law, whether the law in fact has been applied to the fullest, or whether is there somebody, there's a wheeler dealer in the Supreme Court system that is stalling justice and telling people what to do, because this is in the interest of certain people that he's there to guide. We don't know, but in the operation of the law, if the family through the counselor that have filed the bill of error before the Supreme Court and provided the certificate and alleging the affidavit of what had happened, so that the rule 7 said that everybody should be given the opportunity to be heard by the Supreme Court. So the case should have gone to the full bench of the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court to come up with final verdict on the case. But they will not do that, because if it go before the Supreme Court, now people are saying that these people do not have document for this property, and then the people will be able to produce document. Then the fraudulent nature of the case will also be before the full bench of the Supreme Court, because the judgment itself is void. And what the judgment is void, because the reason why the judgment is void in the first place is because those judgments were obtained by people illegally, because those people, they are not certified to practice law in the Republic of Liberia, and the Supreme Court is very clear on this. There have been so many judgments that have been voided by the Supreme Court because those judgments were obtained by non-lawyers.
Thank you. So AB or Morris, you can come in with this. So the people that actually carry on this eviction, whose order were they acting on? Is it still, because the case came back, right? So what was this last thing that said, hey, go and do this? Who said it?
That is a very, very good question. Up to now, we're still trying to figure out how in the world, all of a sudden, 4 o'clock in the morning, somebody's trying to execute an eviction notice, but not just an eviction notice, but a demolition.
Demolition, yeah.
It's preposterous, Dennis, to say that the law enforcers were actually trying to execute the law in the middle of the darkest part of the morning. And besides that, the point that Alpha is raising points to some of the weaknesses that are in our judicial system. I know Alpha is trying to be very diplomatic about the powerful hands that are behind some of the implementation of justice, clear and unbiased justice. All of us know that the Chief Justice is from Nimba County. He has particular interest in what is happening within Nimba. So he also may have influenced some of the process with Justice Nambwe, trying to not listen to an error, just to say, well, we have the right to say there is error in this process. Please hear our case. How can a sitting Supreme Court justice not listen to people who say there is error in the case and want you to listen to us, and you say, no, I'm not going to listen to it?
Morris, you're making an assumption, right?
I'm not making an assumption. I'm saying what I know.
No, I don't think. I mean, AB, I don't think it's an assumption, because I mean they didn't just go there to say there's an error. They actually got documents from the Liberia National Bar Association to confirm that those lawyers, quote unquote lawyers that secured that judgment shouldn't have practiced law. What's clearer than that? The evidence is there. And
what I was asking, because he said because the Chief Justice is from Nimba, and so he might have influenced Justice Nambwe.
Okay.
Dennis.
Yeah. But at one point, but let me something else. I think Alpha said, when Al Jabate was talking, that he mentioned something when you talk about statute of limitation. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not sure if you're a lawyer, but we know a thing or two about statute of limitation. And this case, it was started in 2015, and then they kept paying, and then pick it up again in 2018, and our people went to that very code. The court decided to hear it in 2018. So why would statute of limitation then apply in 2020 or 2019? So basically, it's there to see, like, all little justice, I will always say, is meant to be blind. But when it comes to minority right, especially in this case, should be carefully cited to, basically deny minority right. And that's the thing we on about here. So we can talk about the circuit court in Senegal. It's a big problem. Yeah, it's been a barrier for us ever since. But we got brains that work, and there's no way we cannot connect what's happening there to some sort of influence in the Supreme Court, especially when, why was this case not taken before the full bench of the Supreme Court? So I mean, you don't need a rocket scientist to kind of connect the dots and see what's happening there. I mean, we're not accusing anyone, we're not threatening anyone, but the fact of the matter is, there are things that are happening there. Somebody, a powerful person, has got their thumb on the scale of justice, and it is skewed against us. That's the fact. We have to say it's about
why is this happening? Why the Donzo, the Jabata, and the Kroma? What should be the reason?
So Dennis, let me say this, right? Mm-hmm. Historically, our people have lived in Nima County in tranquility.
When you say our people, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about the Ma and the Dan and the Mandingos and the Geeks and all the tribes in Nima County have lived in peace up to the Liberian Civil War. We lived in peace in that county for years. The interesting thing is that when you look at the way Ganta is laid out, if you've been to Ganta, you see what I'm saying. Most of the land that are on the main streets of Ganta were predominantly owned by Mandingo people.
Okay.
I mean, from the Morovia parking station all the way up to Ganta Melodies, most of the land along that streets were owned by Mandingo people. You go there, you see there are two big mosques right on the main road there. That were our people, where our people used to worship. Then the war came, and then people squatted. Like when war came, people migrate, right? So many of the people left their land. Other people moved in. They squatted on those lands. Government, President Salif intervened at some point through the United Nations, and they got some money, over $1 million, through the Musability Committee. They pissed some of these people off, reconcile this whole thing, identify all of the land that were in crisis in Ganta. They have a whole database of people that were squatting. They accepted to say, okay, I will move on the land, give me this amount of money. The Musability Committee, through the Ministry of Finance and government, Ministry of Internal Affairs, Ministry of Justice, they went out there, they paid these people to evict the land that they were occupying illegally. They received money, they signed for it, and some other people used that same money and started to build structures on the land that is squatted on. At some point, the Justice Ministry went back there and said, we'll give you 14 days or 30 days to leave the land. If you don't leave the land, we will come back here and we'll evict you by force. All of that happened in this last 10 years, I would say. Right? So, but because land is a political commodity, it's also an economic commodity, people see it and say, okay, you know what? The Mandingo Bona plenty in that place there. If we start to use force against the Ma and Dan people, what's going to happen is we may lose political capital in the county. Yes. And then you have a former quote-unquote warlord who's in the county that is also fielding some of the crisis from other against our people in the country, in the county. You have different layers of politics that has been playing on people that are illegally squatting on people's properties in Nima County. And every time we make noise about it, oh, y'all want drugs, you're gonna, sentiment to this thing, y'all want to make this thing a Mandingo Muslim thing. But the bottom line is people are squatting on your land illegally. So now you have these people that have built big structures on those lands, and they're sitting there permanently and saying that the land is for them. but the government have refused to act on simple things. That reasoning here, Dennis, let's forget about the law thing a little bit. Let's just reason for a little bit and look at all of what is playing out. When I say the Chief Justice and some of the big players in the county, including Prince Johnson, are also involved with this thing, is based on simple reasoning. The fact that you have Mbappe who acknowledged in his piece, in his legal turnover to Justice Gracie, Gracie to say, well, it is true that these two lawyers that came here and practiced are not lawyers. They did not go to any reputable legal school in the country. But he also said, okay, I'm not going to act now, leave that burden to you. Who come to take over? The man who takes over say, okay, that's true. These people, they're not lawyers. They actually did not lawyer because National Bar wrote a letter, attestation to say these people are not lawyers. The National Bar said these people are not lawyers. He said, okay, I agree. They're not lawyer. But I'm not going to ignore the decision that Emery took before I came here. So I'm just going to acknowledge that decision, even though those people practice illegally. Then you go to the Supreme Court. Justice Language sit down in the Supreme Court and say, okay, whatever happened over there, I'm gonna deny you the right to say there's an error in the process, because so you see what I'm saying? But we'll go to the ECOWAS Code, where it's outside of Liberia, and I want to bring that in because it's important for us to reason. So
we'll get to that.
Yeah, but let me just make this point. So we'll go to the ECOWAS Code, and the ECOWAS Code start hearing all the cases and they say, okay, you know what? The British government said, no, we'll withdraw the case. Let's go back home so we can go and sit down and talk about this land thing. So clearly, you see that an outsider who is not involved in the crisis in Liberia is able to see reason in what is happening in the country. But when you come back to Liberia, people want to use politics and use all these machinations to deny our people their rights.
Yeah, just adding on to
before you come in, I just wanted to find out from AB. You talk about the Musability Committee and the people that were paid. Was this Donzo Jabate, was it part of that contention and people got money for it?
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, every single sort of Madingo land, Madingo owned land, the land that Madingo people own prior to the war, to the best of my knowledge, every single one of them, people got paid for them. People got paid for them and they didn't leave. But what happened? I've got, referring to that Musability Committee Commission report and the lack of political will in resolving this matter. I got a list here before me, a list of people that were, the Musability Commission recommended that they should be prosecuted. And if you actually know about, if you dig into what's happening in Ganta now, you know that these are the people, the main people, that are doing that. So you got Freswa, that's one of them, Freswa, and Amos Swa. Funny enough, he's a city mayor, but he's one of the he's a city mayor of Ganta. And then you got like the Nyan Johnny, who actually occupied my grandfather's property. Now he's claiming it. Neptune Swa and the rest of them. So basically, if those people, because what did the committee say? What they're doing, they're committing fraud. They're creating, manufacturing land document and then selling land to people, unsuspecting people, selling land to them. They're building on it, and basically, and those are like Madingo own land. But if those people, if the political will had been there, from the EJS time, and then start, if they had started some sort of investigation, some sort of criminal investigation into the conduct of those individuals in Ganta, maybe we would have been further down the line in resolving this matter. But these are the people that are still there now, causing problem. And I think, okay, that's why, from what I gathered from the Musability Committee report, they refuse to cooperate with, because that committee, not just Musability, we call the name Musability, but it also had like Prince Johnson and some of the prominent, Nimbayans from Mandan and, the Madingo sort of group as well. So, basically that's what it is, the lack of political will. And I just put all of that down to, minority. When did democracy become a thing of, zero-sum game? Like, you win it, it's just a majoritarian thing, minorities don't matter. And that's the problem. You cannot develop a country, you cannot progress when that's the mindset, and that's what we are a victim of.
Thank you. And we're going to explore a little bit more as to, because every conflict has a history. So we'll go into that a little bit. But here's the question. So now for the land that is in dispute, who has the deed? Who has the document? Is it the Donzo or the person is called Francois? Who actually claiming this land from the Donzo? Is it Francois or who's that? And who has the deed?
But tell us, first of all, not even in my country, as far as we know. He has never been there. The Ganta, let me tell you.
No, my question is, who really is saying, who is claiming ownership to this land that is who said the Donzo, the Kruma, and the Jabate don't own this land? They have it. Who's saying that?
So is the
Francois. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Francois is assuming that he is the owner of the land.
Original deed?
But this, we're telling you, Dennis, that our grandparents were the owner of the land. We lived on that land for over 50 years. But forget about all of that. This Francois man has never been in Ganta. All of us that grew up in Ganta know each other. We know all the man of boys and all the man of girls and boys and girls that lived in Ganta all those years. He has never been there.
Okay. Yeah.
So Francois came after the war. Now Francois is claiming ownership to Ganta Methodist. Forget about the Madingo land. Ganta Methodist. They one of the most premier schools in Ganta. Francois said that grandfather land too. He said the grandfather owned that land. The airstrip where airplane would land in Ganta, he said that his grandfather owned that land. If that's not insanity, then something is wrong.
Yeah, that's crazy. Let me just to Dennis' question. Let me just post something like to Dennis' question. I mean, categorically, the Donzos, the Jabates, the Kroma have legal document for the land. How do you know? Okay, for example, we got a group in Ganta called the Ganta Chamber of Elders, and that's a group made up of predominantly, entirely man and Dan, members. And those are like elderly citizens of Ganta, some of them former senior government official, the only living PRC member, there, and former senators and that stuff. These are prominent people from Ganta, and they are honest people. So they did an investigation from 2019, I believe, when the initial summit started. So they used their own resources. They went around, investigated land documents in that area, to see. I mean, how land document would be. Your land is bordering Mr. Kruma land, Mr. Jad land, and that stuff. So they done their investigation. They come up with a report, and their report is that the document that Francois presented is fraudulent, and the street's name that he put in there, they don't exist.
Never existed.
They don't exist. And they concluded that if that case had been heard on its merit, the outcome would have been different. If the case had been heard on its merit, the outcome would have been different. I think that's the most important thing. So these are not Mandingo people. They are not Mandingo people.
Thank you. I want to bring two comments because I have a caller that I want to bring in. But two comments. Carl Yeye is someone who knows about this whole land authority thing. This is her question, and this is what she's saying. Land disputes are not handled in regular court. Why in the world are non-expert judges mitigating these disputes? By law, the case was supposed to be referred to the land authority. You guys know anything about that?
So Carl. I mean, she have made this comment before, and I attempted to ignore. I ignore it. The problem is that when was the land authority even established, Carl? I get her point. The land authority was established way after some of these crises started. Land authority don't even have all of the data of all of the land crises that happen in the country. How can you even assume that the land authority now is supposed to be the one to judge some of the land crises? So the land authority has some authority in trying to establish ownership of the land. But also we acknowledge the fact that we have more than 50% of the landowners in Liberia that don't have deeded. They don't have deeds to the properties that they own in Liberia. Most of them are owned through some sort of tribal deeds that are given by town chiefs and stuff like that. So there is conflict with the land issue in Liberia. This is not an established registry that you have that we can go to the land authority and say, all right, so here are all the data of all of the people that own land in Liberia. Here is the original deed that, we don't have all that data yet. Land authorities do exist, but they don't have all of the established facts around land ownership in Liberia. So I do get her point. She's right. But, the bottom line is that still...
You may have something to say. Let's see what... But the next thing before I bring in Some are telling me like, so let's get this clear up from the beginning. They say, Dennis Kaka say good discussion, but you should have brought in some Nimbayans from the Dan and Ma ethnic group to do this great discussion. I'm following. Thank you for that suggestion. We first this is not going to stop here.
Dennis, your sound is fuzzy, Dennis. I don't know what your microphone is fuzzy.
Is it? Why is it to you, Al and AB? Is it?
Yeah, I can hear you.
It's all right.
Dennis, we can get you. Dennis, I'm not getting you. Your microphone is.
I'm getting him though. I'm
getting him too.
Oh,
yeah. So,
okay. So I guess the problem is me then.
Okay,
yeah,
Maurice, look at
Maurice
that. No, I was just saying that Dennis Kaka is telling me that we should. He said all you guys, three of you, Mandingo, as you have gotten people from the Ma and Dan, but we're in the process. This is step one. If somebody has a case, so we brought the three gentlemen to present their case. So after that, we also want to bring in Musa Belete and probably Madam Edith Gonglo. These are two leaders from that same area, and then other people involved so as to talk about this. And also, Carl suggested that I should invite. He said, Dennis, you should have invited Emmanuel Ure and Ali Kabab from the Land Authority. So we appreciate
it. Now with the Land Authority, Emmanuel Ure is sitting in Wisconsin. Those two people are not. They're not with the Land Authority.
We can also hear their side of as to how this is. But let me first get our first caller to weigh in on the discussion. I think we're having from the back room. If we have a caller, please. When you all said, we can hear the caller.
Caller, go ahead.
Yeah, how you doing, CA? How you doing, Dennis? This is the best show focused on Africa. My name is Tower Johnson. I always call. I'm calling from Atlantic City, New Jersey. I like this discussion that they're talking about the land dispute. There's a lot of land dispute in Liberia. Our photos are not having a happy like I think it was around the beach area, and the people is still talking about land. But let me go to what we're talking about today. I think Mr. Morris, if I'm mistaken his name, if you watch Opon call all the people from the Madengo and the Kio people and Mr. Swat, I think Opon said it, Opon talks to them. And he makes a point and say, Twin Johnson is to be blamed. Twin Johnson said in that conversation I hear, Twin Johnson said the lawyer or the judge that went and made the people together, now coming in the night and break the people's house, that judge needs to be fired because he never told the superintendent of Nima County, he never told the mayor, and he never told nobody, and he just sent the sheriff to go and break the people's house and keep the people out of the house. So Twin Johnson did take the side of saying that it was wrong. He never take no side, either Gio or Mano or Madengo. Another thing again, I think the justice minister, I don't know his name, I think he has something to say in this part, in the land dispute in Nima County. And I think, and also too, I want to tell the Madengo people and the Gio people, we are all Liberians. We need to come together and face this situation. Because what's his name talk about doing Ellington, the United Nations gave him money for on TV or spoon talk, and you are saying it. You say he pays some people their money and they can't get off from the people's land. It's not fair. We need to talk about this land business because we don't want to go back. Pray that the Mandingo and the Gil, they've been living out of one of our brothers said it. He said,
that's right.
To live there during the 80s and 70s. There was no war. The people who are paid, and if they are pay you need to get off this land. You need to get the people their land and who their land belongs to. Because yes, this SWAT is just the person who represented a family that in America for this land. They need to get the people their land. I don't take no side. I don't belong to nobody. I'm a Liberian. We all need to face their problems. A lot of land dispute in Liberia. My question to Forrest is that you need to watch that video when Queen Johnson took the side of all Nimari. He never said because it was Nima County and was that. So what you need to do too, it needs also open and I think they say one of the men doing Helen doing Salitam, he's working open government right now. I think for all the traditional people, he was in that dispute when what's his name? The chairman for LP. He was the man. He was there too. So we need to find that man too and make sure that he gives the land back and he come and talk to this. Their land is very secure. We shouldn't take it for thank George Malawiya for intervening and bringing the Mandingo people and the Gill people together, all those, and we talk about their land. But Prince Johnson never took part. So, Morris, my question is that you think Prince Johnson got something to do with it? To me, I would say he said no, because he said, "Upon you fire the judge, upon you fire the person that gave the order to kick the people out of the house." You don't kick nobody out. You don't burn the people house. There's a way in which you do it. I felt sorry. Tears came from my eyes when I saw that thing. That's wicked. I live in the United States. Before they kick out of the house here, the bank can give us notice before they lock the door and tell us to leave.
That's
You don't
right.
get 6 o'clock in the morning, somebody else. That judge or whoever do that need to be fired. And I think in my heart that Justice Connor or who is the justice, he has something to do with that. And for Mandingo people in the justice system in Nima County. Let the people be in the justice system too. The people are human beings. Let the people be in the justice system. There is no way the people are citizen and they're not in the justice system. They're not in the hospital. They're not mayor.
Thank you, brother.
They are human beings. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let me take in one more caller, and then you can make your comment, because yes, the president intervened, but isn't that something?
Yeah, I really want to address that, but let's take the caller.
But yeah, let's take the caller. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
Hey, Dennis, it's Paul. How y'all doing?
Oh, Carl, welcome.
Hi. Sister Carl, how you doing?
Carl, you're from Ganta too, right?
Huh?
Are you from Ganta?
The question they ask you.
Yeah, I'm from Ganta.
Oh, okay.
I'm not as from Ganta as Morris, but I'm from Ganta.
Go ahead. I myself, I'm from Dickon, Maine, in Ganta.
I wanted to clarify a couple of things. The reason I wanted you to bring on Ali Kaba or Emmanuel is because they were part of the process of creating the current land laws. As myself, I also was part of that process. And I listened to this and my stomach is turning. These legal professionals in my county know very well that land issues by law. I heard I think it was Abu said that in 2018, they took it to circuit court or something. There is no way, after the establishment of the land law, all those cases were supposed to be transferred to the land authority. Contrary to popular belief, we have extensive records in Liberia for actual land use. And let me tell you why. 1964 was when Nimba became an actual county. Before that, it was just part of the North Central Territory. There was no private land in Nimba before 1964. Every original mother deed was either signed by Tubman or subsequent presidents. So don't believe.
No, but yeah, go ahead, make your point.
This is a fact. So do not believe in any way, shape, or form that there is no record of mother deed. That's the first thing. What normally happens.
I did not say that.
Hold on, Morris. Let her finish.
Yeah, let go finish your point.
What typically happens is customary land rights are confused with actual ownership. And this is not just Nimba. This is the entire country. Even Monrovia. People don't understand the laws and the process of buying land. In the traditional setting, the paramount chief does not own the land. They are administrators of public land, or what we call tribal land, which means that the land literally belongs to everyone. It is no one's private property. The tribal certificates are issued by the paramount chief in consultation with others for usage rights. So, oh, you need this place to farm? Okay, I will give you tribal certificates. It's to avoid chaos. And so tribal certificates were issued to people, and then those tribal certificates were passed down. I heard Suwa say in one of the interviews he gave that his grandfather owned all that land. That is not true. He believes it. Maybe he knows he's lying, or maybe he really believes that. Because his grandfather was paramount chief and he issued tribal certificates doesn't mean that his grandfather owned the property. It means that his grandfather, working with the Ministry of Internal Affairs, because paramount chief is an appointed/elected position, depending on who was president at the time. This position does not give you ownership. It's almost as silly as saying George Weah owns everything in Liberia because, or everything that belongs to government because he's the president. No, he does not. He is an administrator. So that is one of the fundamental issues with the misunderstanding of what ownership is.
Thank you.
And those kinds of things, when they go to court, the first thing is the courts themselves are controlled by people who do not understand this. You got very educated people in Liberia who do not understand this. Every child of a paramount chief in the interior thinks that their grandfather owned everything because they were issuing travel certificates, so they incorrectly believe that that was their property. So when I listened to Sua, I knew right away he didn't own the land.
Thank you, Carl.
I knew right away he didn't own the land. And I want to add one more thing. Secondly,
quickly,
I want to know if there's a mother deed. If there is no mother deed, what would typically happen? This is why the land authority should have been the one to mitigate it. If there was no mother deed, if this was just an issue of people making up fake certificates and transferring stuff, the current occupants of that land would take precedence if, in fact, there was never a mother deed. In any event, the reason this thing ended the way it did is because the correct process that had already been established by 2018 was not followed. You are talking about a judge giving a judgment in 2019. That judgment is illegal. He should not have been doing so. The land law of 2018 makes previous laws. What is it when we write a new law? The previous laws become, obsolete. It overrules them.
Thank you, Carl.
I'm just surprised with all the lawyers who guys remember that this happened. But yeah, thank you. Let me get off the phone. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Cole.
No,
you are mute.
You are mute. I mean, perfect manager.
Morris.
Go. No, let Al go first.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think Carl spoke well. These are some of the reasons that the Musa Ability Commission came into effect in the first place. Because the Musa Ability Committee was able to establish as to who have been over the land for over 50 years. And even if I may take you a little bit back, there have always been an urge to seize the property of the Mandingo people in Nimba County. So we go back to when the Civil War came. When we left Ganta, we left houses standing on the ground. And there was no war in Ganta. Those houses were occupied. They were referred to as capture and owned by those who occupied them, generals of the MPFL. You understand? But then eventually, as the Civil War went on, and finally we had peace, we went into election. President Charles Taylor finally was elected president of the Republic of Liberia. And then he realized that he was elected as president for the country. This was no longer an NPRAG or MPFL government or whatsoever. So what he did was he issued a directive. He did not even go back to anything. He issued a directive. He said, go back to where you were before 1990. If you were not on that property before 1990, you have to leave. The original owner must have access to that property. But everybody knowing who President Taylor is or was at the time, that he means what he said. People left, and this is how people got their houses back. So at that time, we have physical structures standing on the property. We have houses, we have stores, nothing broken down. And then we were able to get by our houses, our stores, and our warehouses. Unfortunately, World War III came. When World War III came, and when the government dislodged Lord in Banga, and while retreating, they made their way through Ganta. They broke through the barrier of defenses of government forces, could not stop them. They end up in Ganta. And they based there where there was war going on in Ganta for several months. At the end of that war, most of the property in Ganta were almost flattened to the ground. So we left houses 2003. But when we came back after the war in 2003, we did not meet the houses there because war had fought in the town and the houses have been broken down. Maybe people might have broken some of the houses down nefariously, but we don't know. But this time we met our houses on the flat to the ground, so rubble. And at that time, the city corporation or the city council of Ganta issued squatter rights to people who occupy those properties. That was done by the city council of Ganta. They issued squatters' rights. So when Ambulai Johnson investigated the former internal affairs minister, the late internal affairs minister, Ambulai Johnson, and knew that the war was over and peace was in sight and people were returning, he wrote this letter to the city council, official letter from Ambulai Johnson to the city council of Ganta. And in this letter, he said that all squatter rights were ended. And the original owner of the property must have access to the property. And who was the chairman of the city council at the time? One Benedict Flomo. Benedict Flomo wrote this letter. These are official government working documents. The chairman of the city council of Ganta, Benedict Flomo, wrote this in return to Ambulai Johnson, that he said in this letter that based on the request or mandate of the internal affairs minister Ambulai Johnson, it had been made clear to the squatters that the squatter right had been ended by the city council and those people should vacate the land so that the original owner can have access to their land. That was acknowledged by the government of Liberia. So initially the people started as squatters, said those properties were broken down and nobody was there. The war had just ended. The city corporation said, okay, you guys can do small things here until the people come back for their property. Now, at the end of the day, that attempt to, we own the property. And they begin to erect giant structures. When Musa Belete Commission came and investigated all these things, because throughout Nimba, we have more than 400 land cases in Nimba. And the majority of those are in Ganta, and Ganta is a major flashpoint. So having investigated, and it was not Musa Belete alone part of this commission. Prince Johnson was part of the commission. The former superintendent of Nimba County was also part of this commission. And a whole lot of reputable people from Nimba County were part of this commission. And like AB said, that's how they recommended Freswa, Nyan Johnny, Melvin Puyo, Say Papa, Neton, all these things, for their notoriety of land grabbing and stealing in Ganta, that they should be prosecuted. So I just want to bring you to speed with the history of the whole something. You understand?
So Dennis, I also wanted to add to the point that Paul was making. So initially when we started the conversation, I was presenting the case that there is, serious flaw within our judicial system, and there are, policy issues that the government must address. And I think Paul struck that, and so I wanted to also bring that back to the fold. That yes, after the Land Commission was established, the Land Commission should have been that arbitrary arm to deal with some of the crisis issue and not a law. Because if you go to the judiciary, the land authority might have had, sufficient data to support some of the issues that were coming out of, it's not just Nimba County. Land issue have been, like one of the callers said, land issue is all across the country. So, you'll get the courts overcrowded, and you have people that have, different interests within these legal issues as far as, making decisions, which, sometimes can lead to other things. But because some of the cases were in the courts before the land authority was established, the court assumed that they still have the authority to continue to prosecute those cases all the way up to the Supreme Court. Now, the land authority is established. The land authority too also did not establish itself to say, okay, we are the sole arbitrator for all land issues in the country. They continue to allow the courts to continue to do what they're doing. So it eventually end up with us continue to go to court, because the court can't really let us say, you have to come to court so we can hear your case, and you say, no, I'm not going there because I'm waiting for the land authority to act.
Right.
If you wait for the land authority, the court may make a decision like what happened to the Kroma, the Javata, and the Donzo property now in Ganta, where police show up 4 o'clock in the morning and demolish both property. And I think Cole made a solid point on that. But I also wanted to, to present that so that all of us are on the same scale as far as addressing some of the issues with the judicial system. There is a big problem in the judicial system that needs to be fixed. And I think it comes down to that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just adding on to what
everybody wants to add. Go ahead.
I mean, because Alpha was going on. I mean, Alpha was giving
go ahead.
A chronology of like the history and that. I just want to just adding on to what Alpha said. There's this myth around that somehow Madingo people, like we, when I say we, the Madingo people from Ganta, we don't have document for land that we claim in Ganta. There's that myth. Let's dispel that myth once and for all. That's not true. We do have document for those land. But then what happened, as Alpha was saying, just one piece of information that's missing from that chronology that I think is important, to put out there is when our people started to come back after the 2003 war and houses were broken down in Ganta. And then they realized, okay, there were squatters there. And then they were trying to make some efforts to get the squatters out there. But they did not panic because what they thought, like, okay, this is a country of law. If you got legal document to substantiate your ownership of something, it shouldn't be a problem. You just go to court. And what did we do? We started going to court. And that very, 8th Judicial Circuit Court in Senegal, we started going there. And what will happen is, so if you go there and present your document you have for decades, you present your deed, and then the next minute, the other person that is claiming it, either Jan Johnny or Francois or Neptune Puyo or Emoswa, will straight away, like somehow they will come up with a replica of that your deed, and then they just tweak it a little bit to backdate it and change a few things on it. So there you can see there that there was this scheme, this organized sort of thing to just basically deprive us of those properties. So I mean, just let's dispel that myth. We do have documents. I will tell you for a fact, my family land in Ganta, we got more than we do have document, and I know that most of the Madingo family land, they do have document for it. But the fact is, the justice system, instead of it being a justice system that will serve justice, is actually a barrier to justice, and that's why we are where we are.
Thank you. So you're trying to get the Land Commission involved too. I learned that you have gone to the ECOWAS court, or the case has gone to the ECOWAS. But as Cole was saying, and I'm not an authority on this land issue, but is the group, the Jabates, the Donso, are they trying to get the Land Commission involved too, the land or authority? Because
so at this point, we're still trying to get the Supreme Court. All our families want is to have the Supreme Court to say, come and have your day in court. Show us where the error is.
Yeah.
That's all we want. The land authority, are you considering?
So the problem is that we can take we are just, a small family in the entire country governance process. So we can say that we determine who hears the case. The fact that, Judge Emery Pay and Gwese in the circuit court in Sanikole made a decision that is damning to us. Our next step is at least advised by our lawyers to say, okay, if these people made a thing, the next level is to go to the Supreme Court. If the land authority deems it to say, well, this is a land crisis, Supreme Court, hold your horse. Right. We need to step in and make an intervention. Then let the Supreme Court say, okay, yeah, you'll go to the land authority, let them hear your case and make a decision. But we shouldn't be the one to make that determination on who hears the case. Our only quest here is to have justice being served. That's what we want.
And we will follow our legal advice, like what our legal advice.
The lawyers are advised on where to go. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And I will come to the ECOWAS code, but let me put a comment here from James David. And James, I want you to call in and tell us, if you can, please call in to explain this. You say, for peace sake, forget about this and he followed this with a comment. Let you guys forget about this land issue since your grandparents are not living again. So even though you're keeping your grandchildren in the
Okay,
land,
yeah, let me address that. Let me address that.
you feel
Let me
address
address that. Dennis,
Yeah.
Dennis, and to the audience member that said that. Look, I know I speak for every single Madingo person from Ganta when I say that the land in Ganta, what we are fighting for, it's got nothing to do with the monetary value of that land. You know, it's got nothing to do with that. Over the years, since the Civil War, I mean, I was in my early teens, and most of us were in our early teens when we left Ganta. We've gone around the world. We've acquired properties everywhere, Monrovia, other African countries, United States, Europe, Australia, you name it. And if you put them all together, the combined value of those properties will be in millions. So we've amassed wealth over the years. We've not been sat there. We've done that. But I will tell you, I speak for every single Mandingo person from Ganta when I say this. Everything that we get, we've acquired anywhere else. The land in Ganta is of more value to us than anything else that we got.
Because it's not about that.
That's correct. That's correct.
So basically, it is our heritage. It's about our identity. It is about who we are. You know, that's the problem. Sometimes people think, no, it's not about those land. What we've acquired everywhere else, it's more value than that. But
thank you.
That's what we are. That's what we are, and that's what we're fighting for.
No,
we're not leading one. We'll fight for the team. We're not leaving it. We're not fighting with
I feel what you're saying. Every time I dream, it takes me back to Dodowega where I was born. The small, even though the guava tree I used to climb, they cut it down ever since, but I still dream about it.
In your head. That's correct.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I know what you're talking about. But here is one thing I want to say. To what extent have you yourself made this a tribal issue? Because and how well are you trying to rally other people from the Dan and the Ma ethnic group on your side? Because sometimes we think people are being tribalistic against us, but the way we ourselves take steps will show that we ourselves are tribalistic. For instance, Carl is from Ma ethnic group and said this is wrong, right? To what extent have you been able to solicit other Ma and Dan on your side?
But Dennis, I mean, through the show here, after talking about the traditional leaders in Ganta, or AB, one of you guys talking about the traditional leaders in Ganta, that also established the fact that this quote-unquote fresh swag guy is walking around illegally to try to attempt to own land where he named adjacent streets to the land that didn't even exist at the time those lands were there. So they actually gave rights to our people there. The problem is that when you have a Sekou and a Mamadi and a Kroma sitting on a talk show to talk about their rights, it's perceived in Liberia as a tribal thing and not just people talking about what is their rights. For example, and I'll give you several examples. If you know the whole impeachment trial in Liberia, everybody can say that the impeachment trial against Cabinet General is unjust. But as soon as a Sekou say is unjust, a tribalism in the man will bring to the thing here. You see, so it becomes a sentimental issue. It is not about the facts around it anymore. So we can sit down here like we're doing right now. We're presenting to you all of the facts around the lands with the Jabate, the Donso, and the Kroma family in Ganta right now. But most people in their small corners will sit and say, oh, the Madingo people won't cause trouble. The Madingo people won't cause trouble. But here we are. We're just presenting all the facts to you. For them to say and say that reasoning with these people and say, okay, the thing people talking here, it's actually, it's fair game. Imagine a poster saying that you just forget about anything for peace sake. How can you forget about something that you are emotionally connected to, somewhere where you saw your parents raise you as a child? You want to just turn your back to it because you got plenty of properties all around the place?
And somewhere where your own parents were born.
It doesn't make sense.
And let me say this.
No, this is you follow up. You say you got to relocate, but before you talk about that, here is what I said on the show, right?
Thank you, brother. Keep that to yourself, brother Davis.
I was having a show and I mentioned that George Bole, the leader of the LPC, and LPC killed my father in Sino County, killed his younger sister Mom Betty. That's the woman I named after my first daughter, and then killed the Mom Betty's son, who is my cousin, the person who graduated from the Teacher Training Institute and went in my town to establish the public school there. And you know what I was told? Oh man, don't point finger for peace sake. Even though your father was killed and your whole town burned down, but don't talk about it. Don't blame George Bullet, because if you do that, you are bringing war. So I see where you're coming from. But my question here is, to what extent? Because it's a very thin line, and the elephant in the room is, Mandingo people are not from here. They're from Guinea or they're from somewhere. And we got to say what it is. Even as ridiculous as that statement sounds, but but to what extent you yourself have made it a trouble issue that anything happened to you, you say, oh, they are doing this to me because I'm Mandingo. And sometimes we leave the criminals that are doing the thing, like the way you are explaining about the fresh soil, and many other people are saying this is wrong. And instead of looking at the criminal nature of these things happening to Mandingo people, you are saying you're doing it to me because you are Mandingo. Does that in any way help to push this travel line?
So
let
me
just
say something.
All three of you coming. So let us start.
Everybody got something to say about this.
I will back up. Let one of them take it.
Okay, after you first.
After you first, AB next, and then Morris.
Well, in my life, in my adult life, I try by all means to make sure that I try to get tribalism out of most of the things that I do in Liberia, so that we can start to look at things beyond the tribal scope. But it is just hard to do that, especially in this case. It will be hard for you to divulge the tribal aspect from what is happening. Of course, I must commend most of the people of Nimba County from the Dan and the Ma tribe. That you got some reputable people now that have started to see the light, and they believe that the peace in that city must be maintained, so that we don't have a full-blown situation and the city is burned down. People from the other ethnic group came up. They wrote a very nice report, unbiased report. And so, like you said, we embrace some of these efforts and statements made by people who are not Mandingo that also help the whole process. We embrace all of that. And this is why it has been said we are talking about families that are affected. But again, it's hard to divulge tribe from this thing, because people who are doing this are doing it because they feel that certain people do not just have certain right to land in that county. And they are doing that because when they look at your last name, let me go to some specifics. We should not even be talking about this if what happened in other cases, that fresh war were trying to claim other people's land and efforts are being made to stop it. It's no different from what is happening to the Donzos, the Jabate, and the Kroma. It's the same thing that fresh war did. But why people are succeeded against fresh war in stopping him against those families, but for the Donzos, Jabate, and the Kroma is a lingering issue in the code where some people got vested interest in that property. And they are trying to own the property through fresh war. They're just using it as a medium to own that property.
Okay.
So let's go to some of the specifics.
Yeah, and let's be brief now. We have 9 more minutes to end the show.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, let me just go to the specifics. Around the LPMC, LPRC property in Ganta, Freswa went there and claimed that property. He produced a deed for that property that his grandfather owned that property since the 70s. But from all indication, FPMC and FPRC are mentioned as features on the deed he presented. But from all indication, FPMC and FPRC did not come to Ganta until the later part of the 80s. Everybody know that. Then how do you come over for D and say, okay, I own this property and this is FPMC on the property in 1960, 1970, in 1970, this is FPRC on the property when those property did not exist at the time and cannot be a feature on it. So the same thing has happened to where they bulldoze and demolish. You see, Francois said he has a property on his deed that he presented to the Chamber of Elders. He has a property that lies between what he called Gompa Main Road and a street they call Dorsey Street. Okay, if we go to the specific of that, his deed under the period of consideration was, he said that his grandfather got that property and the deed he presented was 1950, I think 1952. Okay, but the other deed to the adjoining property by the Domba, you know the Domba was the superintendent of Nimba County, by the Castle and the Island, did not show anything that resembled any of the feature on Francois' deed. Because Francois in his deed, what he called Gompa Main Road, it's actually Todmont Boulevard. Under the period, when we look at the period under consideration, the nothing we're talking about before 1977. Now, he in fact referred to Ganta as Gompa City before 1977. And before 1977, Ganta was called Ganta Town or Ganta Township. But when Ganta gained city status in 1977, the city was renamed Ganta, Gompa City. So Francois is all the fraudulent stuff are on deed that Francois have presented, and people are looking at it. You see, that's the problem.
Thank you. AB?
Yeah, in relation to the tribal aspect of things, what I would say, the fact that most of the entirety of the victims of this illegal land grab in Ganta are Mandingos, and the perpetrators are from the Dan and the Man tribe. Those two facts, that fact, if you add it together, it is not by accident, it's by design. And the fact that, as we have firmly alleged, that there are people within, higher up in government, especially in the justice system, from Man and Dan tribe that are willing, brazenly to help those land grabbers, those individuals, to perpetuate what's happening in Ganta. It's not also by accident, it's by design. And what you got in common there is Mandingos are the victims. So you kind of look at it that, yeah, it's got a tribal undertone. But as I've all, it's got a tribal undertone, like, Alpha said, so like they're just blocking justice for just certain people. But I think what we've come to, and I think, like I've said, we sort of we come to appreciate now the fact that there are people now from the Man and the Dan tribe that are actually speaking up. They're not just sitting there and being indifferent to what's happening. They are actually speaking up. And I think, okay, I would say it's not that it matters. It's not that it set me apart from any other Mandingo person from Ganta. But I'm sat here, I got Mano blood in me. I got Mano blood in me. So, I can't have, something against Man people because, it's part of me. Like I said, it's not that it set me apart from, the rest of the Mandingo people. But the idea is we are one. So it's about time that people stop being indifferent to what's happening, the injustice, what's happening there. Stop being indifferent to it and actually do the right thing. And let's not see that, Francois, Emosua, Nyan Johnny, they are not fighting for Man and Dan people. They are fighting for their own narrow self-interest. So whatever financial gain, whatever financial benefit they get from what they're getting, they're not getting that for, if a poor man child is suffering in Ganta or whatever is happening, they're not getting it for them. It's for themselves. So that fight I don't want, like no man or down person should feel obliged to support those people. That's safe to say they are fighting for, the rest of, their tribe. No, they are fighting for
Thank
their
you.
own narrow self-interest.
Thank you, AB. And as long as we, because not just in the land issue, but every other issue in Liberia, by the time somebody does something and that person is cruel, for instance, we just, instead of looking at the criminal who did the act, they say, oh, cruel people. And so we start to bundle people together.
Yeah.
That is bad. And we need to, at one point, I think there was a disturbance in Nimba, and the headline was Nimba youth vandalized, blah, blah, blah. I said, don't even call them Nimba youth. Because by the time you call them Nimba youth, people from Nimba feel that they should protect them. When criminals do something, they should be called by their names and not identified by any tribe.
Yep, I also remember, the current youth and sport minister during the county meet, claimed that Nima people are troublemakers. That was, a preposterous statement coming from a minister at the time when that county meet entered into conflict and Nima players walk out of the stadium. But yeah, so this collective guilt thing is a problem. And like AB said, there's so many of our brothers, from the Madingo tribe, that their mothers are either Mana or Gio. I got plenty Gio in my family that I can't even count them. There's so many. So it is not that there is this, detesting against other people from Nima County. It's not, because all of us are connected, related so many ways. Unfortunately, and I'm glad that that we had this show, because like AB and Al said, there are people now that are speaking up. Ordinary Limapo saying this thing is wrong. We need to stop it. Let's give these people their properties back. There are people. I saw the lady here had a live show one time. I think about last week or week before that made such a claim, and I was like, wow, this is good. So we need to build that coalition with these people to say that this thing must end, and it must end now. Let's all of us. And I'm glad that also the president intervened. President Weah did a good job with calling all of the conflicting parties, to talk about what is happening. People actually burst out exactly what's happening. So, with all of that, there is problem. The judicial system in the country is messed up. We need to address some of the policy issue. Forget about whether the Madingo man, a man, a diamond, forget about all of that. The problem here that needs to be addressed is to fix the judicial system so that each person can have their rights protected under the law, so that it doesn't become a collective thing anymore. Because if you break Segu Hall, you break Mamadi Hall, you break Bangali Halls, guess what? Every single Madingo man feel threatened now, because there are 3 people, Segu, Mamadi, and Bangali Hall, you break down. So I'm the next person that you coming to next. So I'll feel threatened as well. But if you do it in a way that Segu has his own right, and he goes to court, and he know that he got justice out of it, then the next man know that he also get justice because his rights are being protected. But if you do it in a way that everybody see that those people are running around and becoming disabled and they're struggling to just to get their rights, under the law, and they're not protected, then obviously people will have collective effort to say, we'll fight the system back, even though we're minority, but we'll fight with every fiber of our bone until we can get the justice that we deserve.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We're in discussion with Perfect Manager Maurice Kroman, AB Sanon joining us from the UK, and Al Jabate from Philadelphia. Gentlemen, thank you so much. And we are discussing the Ganta land dispute. Land dispute is all over the place. In fact, all the way beyond God back in Dudwicken. I sent my sister to do a survey, and the boys we grew up together, they were all claiming the land, because since 1985.
This is here, America. Don't forget about it.
And then there comes another thing called dual citizenship.
Yeah.
but gentlemen, thank you so much. I know there's so much to discuss. This will not be the end. We want to bring in other people to hear their perspective. And let's keep discussing this issue, because the issue of minority ethnic groups in Liberia, the issue of the rule of law not being blind is a big issue. Here, sometime or yesterday, we had a show on unification, and sometimes even unity is not as important as justice, because I don't have to know my next door neighbor. I don't even know their name.
That's
But
right.
my trash can, I can put it in their yard.
Yeah.
Because when we are treated fairly and equally, even if the thing is wrong, but as long as it is done fairly, we kind of feel little satisfied. So
That's correct.
Yeah.
how do we
Absolutely.
move forward? How do we, because this is not just a Mandingo issue, it's a human rights issue, it's a justice issue, it's poverty issue, economic disparity,
That's right.
all everything combined. How do we move forward? And that's what I want us to close with, because we want to see how we can end this thing, man. Like, for all of us, this place is boring. I want to go back, and
Me
enjoy.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah, we all want to go back.
before passing through Ganta, I really, and during the war, where this guy called General Targeting was behind me, I want to be able to go to those places, man. I want to leave Monrovia and don't just stop in Montserrat. I want to travel.
Yeah.
Let's discuss the way forward. How do we end this thing? How do we move forward? How do we resolve all these issues? And each of you have 1 minute to wrap up this thing tonight.
Yes, okay. I will start. I think first of all, we have to be sincere and have a genuine reconciliation of the country, because the country was ravaged by civil war. We have to look at what the civil war did to the country. And the second thing to that is we must strengthen the judiciary and strengthen the legal system. Because if people can get justice in the country, at least I believe that people will fall in line. This is not only limited to land. People are actually committing crime against people in that country and getting away with it. If you start a business, you make somebody the manager, he steals all your money, he takes lawyer, and then you go to court, you don't get justice, and your business is ruined. So for me, the legal system of that country must be strengthened, and we all must live within the confines of the law. That will bring unity, and people will see the law as the only way forward than looking at your tribe or whatsoever.
Thank you. Perfect manager. Let our brother from the UK be the last.
Oh, okay. So
why do you get it last?
Because he's not from here.
Okay. You see, you're not starting discrimination again.
So I will also support what Alpha just said, but I also want to, say, like I said in the beginning of the show, that first, there are 2 recommendations I would give. One is, if the government can afford, we need to begin to start to elect our judges in the counties, so that they have some sort of independent authority, and not just somebody sitting in Monrovia and say, okay, you go and be the judge in the county in a circuit court over there. Or we have judges in the counties that are sent to counties that they don't come from, so they don't have direct political, economic, or social interest in the cases that they're going to be listening to. So judges, superintendents, stuff like that, they need to have some sort of independent authority. But also, more than that, we need inclusive governance all across the country. Inclusive governance is not just having everybody, ministerial position of all the different tribes and all the different religious groups and all the different gender groups. But that should also trigger down to all of the counties in the country. So when you say Nima County, there are how many tribes in Nima, let the local government represent what the county profile is. Because it's important when we have all of those different interest groups at the table of this decision making, everybody feel included. But if you don't do that, and every time the minority group keeps saying, hey, don't forget about all we hear, don't forget about all we hear, there will come a time when they get to the wall, and then they'll have to fight back. And that's what's happening with us right now.
Thank you. Okay. AB, I wanted you to be. I was saving the best for last because of our dedicated connection. Even though the manager will want to claim it too.
Yeah, exactly.
The man of finished saying everything I wanted to say, so
I put a stop on there.
No, I didn't want to come last. But anyway, I mean, what my brothers have said, they're absolutely fine. I think the judiciary system, like the law in any country, is very important. I was having a discussion with someone, a Liberian brother, the other day, and we're just making a comparison, like Western society and ours, and then we started to look at different things, crossing out what's the difference in that stuff, and then we kind of like concluded with this stuff that we got all these things, they are richer than us, they got all these stuff and whatever you pour, if you kind of like look at most of them, it comes down to this thing that where people kind of trust the justice system, where, you know, if somebody's going to take billions and go and put it somewhere, they know that their private property right is protected. And then, you know, that will give them that assurance to say, okay, if I take it over there, no one is going to come and just take it from me for no reason. I've got recourse to justice, which is, you know, I can go to court and, you know, my right will be protected. I think Liberia is about time. So if you think like Alpha was saying, so many different things happening there, not just, you know, the issues, so many different things happening. It's just saying that the justice system does not work. And I think it's about time that, you know, we put a lot into that. So once you do that, you straighten it out. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be near good enough where people can trust in the system, where legal justice is actually blind. It doesn't matter what tribe you are. It doesn't matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter how much money you got. But when you go before the law, you are all equal. That's not just something that is written somewhere, but it's actually in practice that you are equal. If that was the case, we won't be on the show tonight, because all of these stuff would have been resolved. You know, so that's the thing. What we can say, that's why, you know, we should put more time into, like, you know, our government, and all of us, in fact, should, you know, support that, because at the end of the day, we are Liberians. We go out there, we learn all the books, and then we go back home, we become justice minister, we become judges, and then we you know, start to practice some of those things that kind of like, you know, damage the system. So all of us, it's a collective effort, but, you know, our leaders, our policymakers should take the lead. So the justice system, fixing it, will solve a lot of problems in our country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just so that we, you know, this kind of conversation should continue, because there are a lot of lingering issues. And I'll give you an example of one of the issues. People sometimes throw these things. Here is this guy, we're talking about land. He say, the Mandingo, you don't encourage intermarriages.
Okay.
You want Mandingo to
You
say
don't see some
no?
of that on the list that we have some of that conversation on the list that a lot of times.
And here's one thing. If you know the Mandingo guy want you to be Muslim, so you marry, how is it to put on your bound? That issue there. so why is there? You don't. Jay Wise, Lawyer Washington. So if you don't have the lyrics, you don't know what to do. You know, maybe we can compare notes.
Yeah, let me send him to me. Let me advise him. I'll
I'll make me advice.
Exactly. And then another person say, "Oh, focus on Liberia, balance it. Why you brought so Mandingo people on the show? You don't bring the other."
It's always the case.
So the reason for the show is somebody is feeling the pinch of something and say,
yeah.
And we say, okay, come here, let's hear what you got to say, because we hear you crying.
Yeah.
So it doesn't stop anybody else from coming tomorrow, or if you want to come on the show, and we want to, and I told Musa Belete, and we want to reach out to also Madam Edith Gonglo, where both of them were on the committee, and they are leaders in NIMBA. So we want to invite two of them to come and we can talk. And also, if you have an issue, something that is burning in your heart and you want to talk about, please don't hesitate to contact us right here on Focus on Liberia. We want to do our best to be fair, to be balanced, and to make people to hear what you got to say. As we say, we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. On top of the hour at 6 o'clock, we're going to be talking about trash in Monrovia. Trash everywhere is trash. Who's responsible to clean it? What's the impact? People are dying from trash. Sometimes we don't know how these things are connected. Fubi Henry, he didn't win the election, but he did a lot of cleaning in his district. He's going to be here to tell us, you know, what's causing the trash and what we can do. Ansu Opa Dualo, he got a company. He said we can even make millions out of the trash. Dr. Morris Kofa is an environmental engineer. He said right now he's having a GoFundMe to make sure to collect trash and clean the city. 6 o'clock, keep your dial right here at Focus on Liberia. That's how we're going to do it. And we're going to end this show now with our song that says that we all Liberians. Whether you are on the French side or the Justin side, we are all Liberians.
That's right.
You come from
absolutely,
back like me, all the way. I used to cross 4 creeks to get to the nearest school in Dodloken. Or you were born with silver spoon from Mamba Point. We are all Liberians. Whether you believe that you are dual citizen or the people in Liberia they're causing the problem, we are all Liberians, and it is incumbent upon all of us to do our best, man. That country has been suffering for so long. So
absolutely.
Absolutely.
light on the hill, that glorious land of liberty, it was established as an oasis in Africa to provide freedom for all free Black people in the world.
Correct. That's correct.
What can we do to make that dream possible? And that's why I would like to end with the song that says, "We are all Liberians." Thank you, gentlemen, and God bless you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Liberia.